do. Oh, looks like we're live. Have we finally figured out this YouTube thing?
Oh, yeah. Those are subscribers.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
All right, let's
Nice.
do this. Ready?
All right. 3. What's up, everybody? It's the Life on Life Terms podcast, and I'm Tom Robinson. And we are not affiliated with any 12-step program, although we do love them and we do endorse them.
My name is Chris Mandeville. I'm a recovered heroin addict. We're here at a New Way Recovery Center in Quincy, Mass. On Quincy Ave.
Yeah.
Lots of resources down here, and if you're in the South Shore area, definitely come check them out. There's meetings, all different kinds of meetings every single day.
Or refer someone over here.
Yes, if you know someone that's in treatment around here and they need to utilize the computers or whatever, like they have all that stuff here. They all different kinds of meetings. Great place.
Great people.
To get involved with and bring different aspects to your recovery.
That's a New Way Recovery Center in
Yes.
Quincy.
And you can find us at LOLTERMS.com, where you can like, subscribe,
Please
and share
subscribe.
our podcast from there. You can subscribe to whatever platform you have, Android, Apple. I think we're on Spotify. We are on
Stricker, I think.
Yes, might even be on iHeartRadio. So you'll find us somewhere. Just search the Life on Life's Terms podcast. So tonight we have a friend of mine I've known quite a while, Tommy, and Thomas, whatever he wants to go by today, and he's gonna share his story with us.
Experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah, and we may butt in and crack jokes or whatever, but
Thanks for coming in, Tom.
yeah, appreciate it.
My pleasure. And do feel free to interrupt, ask questions.
That's what we do. That's how we do it.
I said a little prayer while you guys were out of the room and invited God in. So
Nice.
if anybody has any problem with anything I'm saying, you could blame these two guys.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to leave here with a clean slate.
Yep,
There you go.
exactly.
So I've been Tommy Delaney. I've been in recovery. I have a consistent sobriety date since April 7th of 97. I started the journey in recovery October 1990. And in October of 1990, I was a young kid on a street corner who was just in the worst way. And I was basically on a corner selling drugs, and this car pulled up, and it was 3 guys from my neighborhood who I knew somehow that they were sober, and they started talking to me about what was going on in my life. They knew me since I was younger, and I grew up in South Boston, and everybody knows everybody's business.
Yeah, everybody knows what goes on.
Yeah, so they knew where I was at. And they started talking to me about, maybe looking at things a different way. And I was always in a ton of trouble, always being talked at for being in the situation I was in, always just always had someone on top of me. At least that's how it felt.
Right.
So they started talking to me about maybe, checking something out that was a little different. And I looked in the back seat of the car, and there was a duffel bag that had some shotguns and rifles in it. And if you're new to recovery, we usually don't drive around with guns in the car.
Right.
But what happened was these guys, I said, listen, you're talking about, trying to straighten out my life. You got guns in the car. What are you doing? He says, I was just on my boat. I was shooting over one of the harbor islands. And something clicked in my head, like guns, recovery. Maybe I'll check this out.
Yeah.
And nothing would have got through to me that day like a bag of guns.
Right.
Huh. Wow, that's wild.
And when we look at how people get introduced to recovery, a different way of life. We may have this pure idea of how it's supposed to happen, but what I've learned through all of my life is that nothing's wasted. Things happen without a doubt for a reason. And God is everything or God is nothing. And God was everything in that moment in order for me to be able to get a glimpse at something different. And because of that, I was able to check out some recovery meetings, and my life has not been the same since, and I've never had a bad feeling about recovery since. I didn't stay sober from that point.
So what you're saying is,
Yep.
God came to you that day in the form of a bag full of shotguns.
Well, I personally, I believe that God is there no matter what.
Right.
And
That's true.
my eyes were opened
Right.
through that. And I don't think anybody was up there saying, you know what, I'm going to make this perfect little thing for this guy to see this at this moment.
Okay.
Right.
I believe now that those perfect little things are always there, and we have to experience the pain, suffering, humiliation, and that inner shame actually is what clears away the path to see that. And
Right.
if I don't have the pain, I'm not going to reach out. I'm just not someone that was born with the type of integrity to do the right thing, for the sake of it.
Right.
Right,
And also your environment. Growing
Yep.
up in Salty back then was a lot different than it is today.
It was a lot different.
You know.
I come from a good home. 2 parents in
Mhm.
my home, both worked, non-alcoholics. But I was still a product of my environment.
Right.
I got shot in the throat when I was 13, right through my throat.
Wow.
I
That's not a
I remember
good
the
time.
doctors saying, if there's a good way to get shot through the throat, kid, it happened to you. It just missed everything.
Wow. But you were ready when they say, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. You were something in you was ready for that bag of shotguns to appear, and you cued in on that, and that was
Yeah.
And
It's
how
amazing.
old
That's
were you
wild.
at that time?
I was 16.
Mm.
I was 16, and not too long after that, I was in some trouble from some things, and I reached out to those guys, and I began sobriety. And my experience was I was young, and I was definitely an adolescent who thought he was an adult. So I look at a 16-year-old kid now, or a 13-year-old kid when I got shot, and I can't imagine. But at that time, I thought I had lived through a lot of things, and I was more of an adult. But
Yeah,
looking
right.
back at it now, I was a young kid that was scared, who was alcoholic and addicted.
And
to
just had happened to experience things probably a lot younger than he should have.
lot younger, a lot
Right.
quicker.
Yeah.
I have an 11-year-old daughter, and when I was 11 years old, I was on the bus in town.
Yeah.
We would run the train tracks from Broadway Station to Andrew Station, probably at that age.
Yep.
I can't imagine my daughter. My daughter won't even walk to the store, and we live in Newton.
I know. It's so crazy. I remember at 11 years old, I grew up in Brockton, and would hop on the Ashmont bus, go to Ashmont, walk over to friggin' Franklin Park.
Yeah.
I wouldn't send a child to do that nowadays.
Yeah, I was a late bloomer. I didn't start taking the T into Boston until I was 14.
Yeah. I riding the train tracks down to Plymouth, on ATVs or bikes or, just.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to it at the time.
Yeah.
It was, the value I got from having that independence.
Yeah,
compared
there's some value to it.
there's definitely value. And looking back at my life now, one of the things that I spend a lot of time meditating on is that nothing's wasted. And we can look back at our lives and see events and wish things could be different, but they're not going to be different. They never will be.
You mean, so what you mean by that is no experience is wasted. It teaches you something.
No experience is wasted.
Right.
And,
I see.
It's hard to see that at the time,
Right.
It's obviously something that happens in retrospect to see that nothing's wasted. It all shapes us for who we're supposed to be, and most importantly, shapes us who we're supposed to be there for someone else who needs to see that, to be a witness to that.
And I've said it before, and I've even experienced it. Like, the universe will keep providing you the same lesson until you learn it. You know, over and over and over.
Yeah.
You know, and it may come in different ways, but it all ends up being the same lesson.
Yeah.
So, sober guys pull up, bag of guns.
Yep. I begin a journey of recovery, and you know, for me, it lasted for about 9 months. My first shot. Basically, I just
that was pretty good for a shot.
Yeah, I had no defense against a drink. I had a lot of support, a lot of people around me. There were a lot of younger people sober at the time. I got sober in the 80s. Insurances would pay for long-term treatment. I think a lot of people did get sober and stay sober out of that. But when I really wanted to drink, I didn't have a defense against it. And I just said, well, I'm young. I can, do this. And that drink lasted about a month before I was just in the same trouble, same problems. It was disharmony in my home, to say the least. My parents just couldn't understand where I was at. And I got sober again. I sought out longer-term treatment.
How about grandparents? Any alcoholism?
There's definitely, alcoholism in my family line. But
I think there's a strong case to say that we're predisposed.
Yeah, it's definitely it's. I think we can't ignore that it's genetics, environment, and then individually, what does something do for us that we make a decision to keep using that thing that we believe. By the time alcohol was doing something for me, it had already done something irreversible to me, and I couldn't look back at that point. And it's the old, the thing that's making me sick is the thing that I believe that's holding me together,
right?
Until I can reach that point. But I actually, I stayed sober for 3 years. The next time, did everything that I thought I was supposed to do in life. Went back to school and got a high school diploma. I was a dropout. Maintained a job, got better jobs, got a job in the union. Just try to follow this script of what you're supposed to do as someone who's sober and doing the right thing. I was racing sailboats. People don't realize that South Boston is actually on the water.
I know.
We're a quaint beach community.
Yes.
And but we're on the water. I grew up sailing at a community sailing center and got really involved in racing sailboats. I was out in Milwaukee and I was racing in the nationals for the type of boat that I raced. And after a long day in the water, I was sober just about 3 years. I reached in a cooler to grab a bottle of water, and someone said, "Hey, grab me a beer." And as soon as I touched that beer, I had to have it.
The water was cold, but the beer felt colder.
Yeah, no doubt. But the
hey, on a side note with the sailing, before we move on, but there was skulls going on the Neponset River from my backyard. I was looking at them from my backyard yesterday.
What, a boat?
Yeah, those rowers.
Oh yeah.
There was like 2 of them out there with another boat with a guy with a megaphone and everything.
Training.
I saw him out in Hingham actually yesterday too.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Must be something coming up.
Must be that time of the year.
Head of the Charles is coming up.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Pretty much the biggest thing out there.
Right.
So yeah, had to take that drink. Had no defense against it. And the idea that if I could just straighten out all these things, I'll be okay. I think the delusion that a lot of people have that look at people that are sober and say, if they could just do this, this, and this and get their life straightened out, they'll be all right. But, there was a guy, Jack the Marine, and he used to say, you can pour maple syrup on horse shit, but that don't make it French toast. And,
I think his anniversary was just the other day.
Yeah.
That's good.
Great guy.
Yeah, he was awesome. I met him in the very beginning of my journey in Plymouth House. Plymouth
I
House
remember
Correction.
him very well. He used to go to the Saturday Night Norwell meeting.
Yeah.
So
And like you were saying, some people can do that.
some people can do that, and I think our literature describes them as maybe heavy
drinkers.
heavy drinkers.
Yep.
But what
Drink.
about the real alcoholic? Because for me, I suffer from a threefold illness. It's physical, spiritual, it's mental. And I believe that if I can put the pieces together in my life, that the stability of my life will promote a way of living that I'll want to live. But really, if I'm not fulfilling who I'm supposed to be in this life, see, I'm chasing things in life to make me okay,
Right.
instead of being okay and letting the stability of my life promote what I'm supposed to have. And that's a big difference. So if, they say all the time, it's an inside job. But if I don't take care of that inside stuff, it doesn't matter. Because there's never going to be enough.
Yeah.
There's never going to be enough. I can get the thing that I want, and then as soon as that wears off, I'll be looking for the other thing.
Yes.
And it's like, window shopping through life of what's going to make me okay, and I'm constantly looking for it instead of just constantly being okay with who I am. And, one of the things I'm meditating on lately right now is meeting myself where I am. Where am I now? All these other things have happened. This is where I want to be. This is where I wish I could be. This is where I think I should be. This is where I've been in the past. This is what people expect of me. But where I am right now, where am I? Where am I right now?
I
Meet
struggle with
myself
that.
there.
I struggle with that a lot.
Being in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
It's
because
real-
all
it's
that other
really
stuff
nice.
fades away. The only thing that doesn't fade is right this moment. And if I'm seeking out that I'm going to be okay someday if I achieve this, which society it was just pounded with this constant, you need this.
Exactly.
You know?
America, it's insane.
Yeah, and everything that you see, I mean, what are we bombarded with? Probably a couple thousand advertisements a day. I was just reading something recently where it basically said all advertisement is meant to make you feel like you're a loser unless you have this thing. So you're not enough unless you have this thing.
Yep.
And the whole, the whole backbone of advertising isn't just to promote a product; it's to promote why you're not okay without it. And
Right.
and that constant idea, I need to have this, this, and this. So I had all those things going in my life, but still, I take a drink, and so that that was August of '94, and that drink lasted about 2.5 to 3 years almost.
And this is after 3 years.
This is
of
after almost
sobriety.
3 years of sobriety. Yeah. So I think I was about 12 days short of my 3rd year anniversary, and then actually, so I was out in Milwaukee. When I came home, my father dropped dead of a heart attack at 46 on what would have been my sobriety date, September 1st, and so here I am in a world of
sucks.
shit. I just picked up a drink. I haven't told anybody other than my girlfriend. AA showing up in my life. People are showing up in my life.
Because that's what.
That's what they did,
That's
you know.
what they
So all
do.
these people in recovery are there for me, and I just don't have the courage to tell them, hey, I just took a drink, and I was
Wow,
in a
see,
really
I think
really tough
that's-
place.
I think that's not uncommon.
No, I think,
People are so ashamed.
but it's also too. I was 20 years old, and I can't, I have to find a distinction sometimes between what happens as a 20-year-old young man going through life. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to fall short. He's going to have, my problem is I'm doing it through either sobriety or addiction. And, so if I don't tell the truth, the consequences are a little more severe. So like a normal 20-year-old kid may not, or probably will not be able to talk about what's going on. But the difference for me is if I don't talk about it, if I keep it a secret, I'm going to find something to make that secret go away. And I'm going to search for it, and it's just going to create more emptiness.
Well, the problem with the relapse now is, and the reason I think behind that is fear of judgment and being judged. And the problem with that is if someone's struggling in the fear of and not come into their fellowship because of fear of judgment, they could die. You know what I mean? Very easily, and they do. And that's why we can't have this judgment. You know what I mean? It's if someone goes out, they need help, and they need acceptance, and they need a hand back in. They don't need judgment.
Yeah, but you're dealing with a host of people that are all at different levels.
Spiritual levels. I understand. Yeah,
and it's tough.
It's tough, but if we spread the just spread the word that the judgment kills.
No, there can't be any stigma. I have right now, currently, the way I'm trying to live with anyone is that I cannot judge anybody for where they're at. If someone comes to me for direction, that is the place where I get to have, I don't know if an opinion, or say, hey, listen, you're the one who came to me. This is what I have to offer. If you don't like it, there's plenty of other ways you can try to seek this out.
Yep.
I need to meet people where they are. So if someone's on the street using, I have no place to judge where they are. I can't say, well, hey, there's beds available if they wanted them. If they wanted this bad enough, I have no idea where someone's at.
Exactly.
But if someone is coming to me saying, what do? I can only share what I've done.
Yep.
And, because at the time, 97, when I finally, that relapse lasted a while, and it just went back to madness. And, my friends were, some of the first to really begin the opioid overdose.
Yeah.
Really, it was like 8 kids in a row that I grew up with, and it had just come off a string of suicides in South Boston. There was a surge of adolescent suicides that happened.
I think I've heard of that
95,
before.
96.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And people were blaming it on the drugs, on heroin. But I think that there was a lot going on, and at that time, I was a mess. I was into a ton of illegal activities. Hadn't worked in a long time, and basically, I reached that point of hopelessness where I because I had known about sobriety. You don't spend almost 4 years around recovery and not know that there's something there. I reached out, for help. And I wasn't desperate in the sense where, I had money at the time. I had a car that ran. I had a roof over my head. I wasn't desperate in that sense, but I was ready to take my life. From the way I was living and the things I was doing. And I reached out and tried to go to a detox. And where I was at the time, actually, I was out on workman's comp. I would get this comp check every couple of weeks, and that would last the weekend. It was like $1,680. I would get it on a Thursday. Around 2:20, my mailman would show up.
And that would last the weekend?
And that would maybe last till Sunday morning. But what it would set me up.
Damn it.
Actually, at the time, I'm a convicted drug dealer, so that's not a secret. People that know me, I just had, it allowed me to continue to use in a way where, I could just blow it up all the time because every 2 weeks I had this check to start me going again. But I had reached this hopelessness, and I went to try to go to detox, ended up at a Catholic Charities Counseling Center in Braintree. I don't think it's there anymore, but I said, listen, I'm just trying to go to detox.
I think it was right next to Archie's, right?
Yeah, it was right next to Archie's. Yep. And at the time, I had really good insurance, but I didn't have the courage to call my EAP to say I need help.
What's an EAP?
Employee Assistance Program.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't have.
Yeah,
I couldn't pick up that phone.
You still got a union job. You're out on comp.
Yeah, I've been on a con
Yeah.
forever. And so I'm just so beaten down. I'm beaten down so much that when I got that check on a Thursday, I had to get to the bank by 4:30 to cash it, and I couldn't muster the courage to get out of my house to go to the bank, to stand in line. Just the shame I was living in, just the shame of who I was.
Self-loathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would wait and maybe go to the check cashing later and pay them
Yeah.
$86 to cash a check that belongs to me. And if I had to wait even longer, there was one on Tremont Street that was open to midnight, and I think it cost me like $1.20 to cash.
Or you
it.
could go to the bar.
Or I could go to the bar.
Yeah.
But
They're always good for cashing a check.
yeah. So I was just beat up, and I went in this place, and I met with this counselor, and I told her everything that was going on in my life, and she basically told me, hey, listen, Tommy, you're screwed. She said the only thing that's going to get in between you and this is God, the 12 steps, and recovery.
The counselor said that?
The counselor. She was a Catholic nun.
That's fantastic.
And I knew because she was a Catholic nun, she had to talk about God.
Okay, Catholic.
But I knew, basically the way she prioritized it is God, the 12 steps, and a life of recovery, and a program of recovery. And she told me to go home, eat something, and beg God to end this madness. And that's what I did. I went home, took a shower, ate something, and I got down on my knees, and I begged God to end this. And I've been clean ever since.
Wow.
I had drugs on me. I had money on me. I had like $1,400 on me, and it was a Friday, so I still had some. I hadn't burned through the money yet.
Right.
I remember I had a little over $1,400 on me, but I was just dying, and just I
Didn't matter.
didn't matter in that. So nothing changed. Those moments I was on my knees, but I can tell you that things have been different since, and it's basically given me the foundation of how I've lived my life since, is that I feel a certain way. I invite something else in. I try to take that direction. Nothing in those moments in my life is going to change, but things become different. And that's what the personal journey to recovery for me has been, is that not much is going to change in my life. The moments I spend in prayer, meditation, thinking of others, but I'm different. And then I become different for those in my life. And so my sobriety began that day, and I should have been a little more specific when I asked God to end the madness, because the next day the Boston Police, State Police, and DEA gave me a spiritual awakening.
Yeah, I was gonna say, God, we ask for help with things and for things to end, and we may not always like the way that goes down.
No.
I like the way you said, though, because we change. It's like, keep coming, it gets better, and by it gets better, it means we get better.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. Life doesn't change. Life is life, and then we get better at living it or doing the thing.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Doing the next right thing.
Yeah. And then the trick is, how do I maintain that long term? And, for me, if I look back at my attempts of sobriety before, they were definitely my heart was in the right place. I knew I was screwed up. I heard something that was different that I wasn't hearing anywhere in my life. I saw people living differently. I began to live differently. But there's a maturity that has to happen in that process. And in my experience, it's better if it happens slow. Because I get excited about things. I don't know about anybody else. If I like something, if I'm interested in it, I'll research it, look at it, totally throw myself into it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, what's over there? I find this new thing, and I'm constantly looking for something else to feed the hole. And recovery is a lot different, because I have to constantly be aware of the hole, what I'm putting in the hole, what I think it's doing for me, and then eventually, my experience is I think I'm the one that's creating this great life for myself, and that I'm powerful.
Yes, ego.
So, yeah, the ego, or just even the fact that, like, hey, you know what? I'm proud of myself. I did go back to school and get a high school diploma. I have maintained a job. I have done all those things.
And when you're talking about a hole, you're talking about a hole in your soul.
Hole in my soul, the emptiness that
Emptiness
that
feeling
just
inside that you're always looking outside to fill.
yeah, just, you know, money, property, prestige, other people's opinion.
Money, power, respect.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, it's something different for everybody, but we all, you know, suffer from the same symptom of it.
Yes.
And what we put in there, you know, is different for everybody.
So, you know, you started talking about the spiritual awakening you had.
Yeah.
With the state police and the
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that happened, and it was not good. It was a very public thing. Brought a lot of shame to my family. They didn't know what to do. And I remember being, you know, after getting arraigned, I went in a detox that afternoon, and a day or two later, one of my closest friends overdosed and died. And you know, they let me out of the detox to be part of his services, and they let me back in, which is they don't do that usually.
Right.
They just, you know, give me a urine test, and but basically from that point, I've tried to take every suggestion and move forward the best I could. And you know, I spent my first year of sobriety preparing to go to prison sober, and that's where my head was at. Gracefully, you know, through a lot of grace and a good lawyer, that didn't have to happen.
Right.
It was actually my only adult arrest. It was the first time I'd ever been arrested as an adult. You know, that sobriety from 16 to 20 saved me a lot of trouble.
Right.
Most of my friends had been in and out of jail at that point. You know, I had, you know, friends that had murdered people at that point.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of madness that I missed.
Yeah, DYS, Deer Island.
Yeah, all that
crap.
Stuff. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
very easy to get
my
caught
crowd
up.
was like the first class at Salt Bay.
Yeah.
They were. They opened the doors. So I faced that situation. It sucked, but I did it. And what I found was that I just kept taking suggestions. They said, you should go here. I went there. You should do this. I did that. You should meet this guy. I would meet that guy. And what I had to do was I had to cut ties to a lot of things, a lot of old ideas, a lot of people.
Yes, cut ties to old ideas. That's
You know.
a good concept. I had to do that myself.
Yeah.
Difficult to wrap your head around at first, and I think I went out a few times because of it. Old ideas, you know, you got to open up your eyes to a new slate, a new life, and a new
even
thing.
You know, the way I look at it is I always had this nasty knot in my gut. I would walk around with it. Some people get like tense shoulders. Some people get headaches. For me, the physical manifestation of how I felt, I would just, my stomach would just ache and ache and ache. And it was like the truth of who I was supposed to be in this life was written on the lining of my stomach. And every time I went against it, there was just pain. And so I believe, you know, that there was always someone Tommy Delaney was supposed to be, but I couldn't get there. I couldn't even see what that was supposed to be. I couldn't experiment with the idea that, you know, maybe I want to do this. Well, I can't do that. What would my friends think if I wanted to do that? What if I wanted to take an art class? Geez, learn something about art. I can't tell anybody I'm doing that. Yeah, that's for other people, you know. And then you start to demean, you know, to protect yourself, you start to demean anyone that does these things. And I look at so many things that I've wanted to do in life, and so many times I would put down people for doing them. In a crowd. So like these old ideas.
Irony.
It's and to make a point, if you're currently doing something, it's not an old idea. It's a current action.
Right.
So it's like you know. So if I have these, you know, if I use the terminology, I have these old ideas that I sometimes revisit. They're not old ideas. They're current ideas of what's going on.
It's not an old behavior if you're still doing it.
It's not old behavior if you're still doing it.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough that I found I found people in my life that I had no relationship with in the past, and it was easier to make changes around people that I didn't know, because I didn't have to be who I had been prior to that. And
or try and be someone that they assumed you were someone completely different.
Yeah, I mean, being from Southie, you always get this stereotype thrown at you, and it drives me nuts. A lot of it's based in truth, but a lot of it's based in maybe 2% of like Southie knuckleheads that, I'm from Southie, pounding chest and all this stuff, and they're usually like some of the biggest dirtbags walking, and like the values that I grew up in South Boston were a little, they were still there from the older guys. And, one of the things that I noticed heroin did to South Boston is it drove people inside. There was a lot of shame of getting high. You could do everything else, but if you touched heroin, you were the bottom of the barrel. And when it removed people from a street corner, we grew up, we hung in a schoolyard, a park, a street corner, and there was a natural pecking order until you reached like a barroom that you went to. That pecking order got disturbed. And values that were taught through like the older guys saying, hey, you don't do that. This is where you live. You don't do that here. It was okay if you did it in other places, but you don't do that here.
Right.
And heroin disturbed that pecking order, and it took away a lot of things, and it changed, in my opinion, old school values that I grew up with.
Right.
Because I grew up with a certain code, and what I think spirituality is living in a way that I believe to be true. Living a principled life, and I had this code growing up, and I couldn't fulfill it. I had this information being pumped to me of how I should live life, and I was too afraid to live that way. Constantly bombarded about what's going to make you happy, what you should do, the American dream, the white picket fence, go to college, do this, follow this script. I couldn't do any of that. And if I can't do any of these things, I'm empty.
Right. It makes you feel so shitty about yourself.
Inferior, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like we're set up to fucking fail.
Yeah, and it's
and
so whether addiction is about genetics, your social standing, whatever it is, I know for me, I felt empty, and I began to take these things that I thought were filling that emptiness, but actually they made me emptier, and it's that emptiness that I'm actually addicted to. I think I'm addicted to this lifestyle, but I'm addicted to this emptiness of I just don't want to feel anything. I don't have to be anything. There's no expectations. But it only lasts so long. It's a glimpse. And
I can relate to that.
And the longer it goes on, the less I get it. And then I have to sell out these values that I believe in at that moment. And I have to lower my standards and lower my standards. And, for me, my bottom wasn't an act. That it wasn't like most people would look at how I got sober and say, oh, he got sober because he got arrested. I got sober the day before. But that was like the billboard that people would look at. But really, it's I believe the bottom is the day I can no longer lower my standards to catch up with my surroundings. And I think I can still go on. I could have still gone on, I'm sure. But at that point, I was ready to receive help. And I was graced with opportunities to get it and reasons to do it. That arrest saved my life.
Right.
I never thought I was going to have a good life after that. I thought I'm a convicted drug felon. I'm never going to get a good job. This is never going to happen to me. And I had to do a lot of hard work, but my record has not once affected anything I've ever wanted to do in life.
Right.
It hasn't affected any career. I went from being a convicted drug felon to I was a project manager, and I traveled the country building banks. A lot has to happen in between those two things.
Right.
Yeah.
Security plans to a bank, bags of heroin.
Yeah.
A lot of things have to happen, and that's what happened in the recovery process. I was able to become who I was supposed to be in life. Was mentored through that. made tons of mistakes, done tons of stupid things. That's just part of life, though.
Right.
We have no monopoly on being stupid heads. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we have no monopoly on struggling through life.
But that's the thing. Like, you know, in my opinion, recovery is being able to deal with those things.
That's what I was thinking.
Without
Yep.
going back to what we used to. Like, I don't want to fucking deal with this right now. I'm just gonna
Or
numb
just
out. Whatever.
being able
and
to
it doesn't even have
handle
to be
the emotions that
Yeah.
come with it.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to be drugs. You know what I mean? It could be shopping. It could be women. It
Sure.
could be
Or
it
just
could be
trying
whatever.
to ignore everything and pretend
Yeah.
everything doesn't exist and just try to dive into anything
Fucking
like
head in the sand.
entertainment,
Yeah.
whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, sitting there binge watching shows
Yeah.
just so you don't have to deal with life.
Right.
And I think you have to be blessed enough to actually stay sober long enough to go through those cycles, those seasons.
Yes.
My friend calls them seasons.
Yeah.
To get on the other side of one, to say, whoa, you know, I'm actually in trouble if I continue living this way.
Mhm.
Or,
Right.
you know, something happens, you lose a relationship you wish you had.
Yeah.
You start doing things where you can't look at yourself in the mirror. You know, one of the things I was thinking about driving over here is it is like the seasons of what happened. And so this is just my opinion of what I've seen is that, so the addict gets sober. All right, I'm going to try this, you know, for whatever reason. Given directions, you know, if you're an addict like I was, you know, you're oppositional to everything, or you'll smilingly agree to it, and in your head saying, you're a fucking idiot. You know, I'm going to just do whatever I want. You're a loser. Because I
Yeah.
can't wrap my head around what life would be like if I actually did take a leap of faith. And so all this old information that I'm living with is just such a block. But I don't want to go back to the way things were. And then I started to get some relief from that recovery that, all right, maybe like this is starting where I am feeling a bit. I'm not doing this. My mother's talking to me again. This is going on, you know. Hey, I got a new pair of sneakers. What's up? You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's the old like sneakers, fresh jeans, haircut. You know, I'm all set. You know, Friday afternoon. And then like something else has to happen to stay sober long term. Some work has to be done, and then some of that work is, you know, getting the job, getting the girlfriend, finding some stability. And I think, all right, I've made it. This is where I'm at. But then life just continues to happen. And I think there's difference between someone who makes it long term and someone that doesn't, is that asking for help every step of the way, being involved in something every step of the way, having someone say to you, hey, listen, you're fucking out of line. You know, what you're doing right now is crazy.
Yes.
And it's hard to do that in a way that doesn't make you look like you're being judgmental, but also, like, the men that helped me weren't concerned with how I felt about anything.
Yes, they loved you more
Yeah.
than your feelings.
You know? And
It's like,
yeah,
Right.
they could care less how I felt.
right.
They would say, we just care what you do. I don't care what you feel. You know? Just
Yeah.
do it and see what happens. And
Well, it's a beautiful thing. You know, continuing to grow is a beautiful thing, and it's hard to understand that in new sobriety. When I got sober, I thought that I would be miserable for the rest of the time, and I didn't care. I still wasn't going to use, you know. But it's not that way, and you continue to grow, and life keeps changing. And if you keep doing the next right thing, it you know, we get better.
yeah. You know,
You
it's
know?
and I think, you know, the way I grew up, I feel like I was just trapped in this box trying to get out. And there was something inside of me trying to get out. And then all of a sudden I get out, I'm like, holy shit, what do I do? I don't
Yeah.
know where I am.
Yeah, exactly.
I know the box. You know, I know what it's like to live in the box and constantly feel like I need to get out of this. I just need my break. I need my chance. I need this to happen. All of a sudden, something happens, and you screw it up, and you say, what the hell? This is what I wanted. How did I screw this up?
Fear of the unknown.
I have no capacity to move forward.
Right.
But
Right.
the problem that I had was I thought it was mistakes that were going to ruin my life forever. Oh, everything's ruined now because this one thing happened. And getting back to what I originally said, nothing's wasted. That it's all an experience. Everything that happened has happened, you know,
For some reason.
for some, it's happened. What I do with it, like I don't believe God's up there saying you're gonna get this, so someday you can do this. The shit's just there. It's gonna happen. Who am I gonna be in this stuff? And I've made all the mistakes you can probably make as a young person growing up in sobriety. I've had tons of struggles, but through the grace of being involved with other people, I've come out the other side of it better for it. Hopefully haven't made the same mistakes, a ton of times. And the people in my life have benefited from me being there.
Yeah.
I have an 11-year-old daughter. And when we wrap our arms around each other and say, I love you, there isn't a bone in my body that doesn't feel deserving of her love. And I don't think she feels unworthy of my love.
That's beautiful.
And I know what it's like to have people care about me so much. But in the back of my mind saying, if you only knew who I was, what I thought, what I've done, there's no way you could love me.
Yeah.
So I've gone through those periods of like becoming a person who's worthwhile, who has value, and coming out the other side, and take steps back. But eventually, like I have to live a life that isn't connected to ego and madness and self-promotion. I just kind of have to be okay. And when they say recovery is an inside job, that inside is limitless. There's no destination. There's no place I'm going to get to where it's like, all right, now I've got this and I'm going to be fine the rest of my life, because I've learned that mistake many times where like I've gotten this. I just want this. I got to have that brand new Lincoln Town car. I get that brand new Lincoln Town car. Now I'm worried about somebody dinging my door. And it's like I have all these ideas of what's going to make me happy. Then I have to protect them because I think that's what's my happiness is. And it's really like none of that stuff is going to...
It's all backwards.
And what I have to seek out is fulfillment.
Some of the stuff that you've tried to do has backfired. I remember when we were working.
Yeah.
You went and I think it was Reiki.
Oh yeah.
He went and had some Reiki done, and then it was like
I had some energy
ghost.
healing done that brought about a depression that totally wiped out my ability to show up.
Yeah.
And again, to get back to nothing's wasted, if I hadn't gone through that at that time, I wouldn't have been able to move forward in other directions. And
That's
I was
interesting,
so when I got sober, I took a job delivering flowers because it's all I could do. Nobody was offering me any work. The union had blackballed me basically, and I took this job.
Construction union?
At the time, they were not too thrilled about helping heroin addicts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was before their family was affected. Once their family and grandkids started to become heroin addicts, it was a different story.
Exactly.
But I was a pariah, and people would say, things like, "What the hell is he doing down the hall? Get him out of there!" And
wow.
And I eventually I caught the business agent at a bakery on a Saturday morning, and I said to him, like, "What's the deal? Are you going to put me to work or what?" And his attitude, what he exactly said to me was, "I got enough fucking headaches in my life right now. I have no time to deal with you." And that was after he had told me, "Go get sober. We'll take care of it." Now, I can't blame him for his decision making because the guy deals with a lot of stress. And what he was honest with me. I got enough headaches right now. On the list of helping people, you're the last one I'm thinking of. So I don't blame him. I shouldn't have been talking to him. I should have been talking to someone at an EAP, Employee Assistance Program, who was the mediator.
Yes.
I didn't know that, and the EAPs weren't set up that way. Now they're set up totally different.
Oh yeah.
But I was definitely, and again, nothing's wasted. All I wanted back was my job in the union. That was the only thing that was going to make me happy. So I got this job delivering flowers, and I'm driving around and pissed all day. The big dig's going on. God damn it! This one's working. That piece of shit's working, and I'm not.
Yeah.
And I remember calling up my sponsor, complaining, and he just said to me, "I can't think of anyone better suited to bring people joy than you." Click. And
delivering flowers.
He's, it just dawned on me, like, I have a job where I get to bring people joy. But all I'm concerned with is the prestige and the money I'm missing. And like, if I get this job back, I'll be okay. Instead of being okay with where I'm at, meet myself where I am. I'm a guy that just survived addiction, who just was given a chance in moving forward, but I'm too ungrateful to see that because I need that hole fed. And I think if I have this, and this, I'll be okay. But I have to be okay to enjoy this, and this.
Mm-hmm. It could have been the worst thing that ever happened to you.
You know, getting that job back in the union. So I get this job delivering flowers, and I got to show up, and people saw that I was consistent, and I was given opportunities. Someone opened a door for me with the city of Boston, which I got an entry-level job, which ended up turning into I was a project manager in community development. A lot has to happen in between those two things. A lot of showing up day after day. And again, I didn't do that gracefully. I pissed a lot of people off through some of my struggles. I had been married and divorced in that time in sobriety early on, and that affected my ability to show up at my job. But I did put my recovery first, and it definitely affected some things in my life. And it was also just, I was a guy in my 20s that was maturing and learning how to live life.
Yep.
But what happened was after that was I got this job traveling the country. I lived in D.C. for a while. I went to school. I was traveling the country building banks. And when I came home, when the recession hit, I was working with Chris, and I was kind of stuck and did the Reiki thing. And it ended up, I thought, like, this is crazy. I can't believe this happened to me. I'm sober a ton of years. But if that didn't happen, who knows? We'd still be painting together. I don't know.
Exactly. But it was crazy that, obviously you needed that to happen.
Yeah.
To remove whatever was there so you could continue on this journey.
Yeah. Be that as it may, it is very interesting that you went to get Reiki and became depressed. I mean, I don't think that's a typical reaction. That's very interesting. I don't know what the deal is. The deal was.
But, just the way you mentioned that, our ideas of what is healing is based on this feels good, this feels bad. I feel bad, let me do this because I want to feel good, instead of saying just, this is what's going on. You want to be healed? Well, sometimes you got to walk through some shit.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to walk through something, and we have this idea of of what's supposed to make us happy, and that spirituality is this thing of everything's peaceful. I have people all the time like, that guy's so spiritual. I'm like, wow, just look at me, so peaceful, and I'm thinking, I know stuff about that guy that's not that peaceful. You know what I mean? Like, that's and it's our idea of what's right and wrong. So that Reiki did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was a cleanse. And it wasn't my first experience with Reiki. I was rear-ended in a car, and my neck was all messed up. And someone who just happened to be an energy healer just said, let me do a little work. And we went to a quiet place. They did some work. And within 10 minutes, my neck, everything was gone. All the pain, the stiffness, everything.
Wow.
I don't know if it's because of what she did or would have happened that way anyways. All I can tell you is I've had 2 experiences with energy healing, and they both brought about results that allowed me to move forward in my life.
Exactly. They were not wasted.
They were not wasted. Nothing's wasted.
No. So what's going on these days?
So these days, I was thinking, like, you asked me to write, a little something in the in your little book over there, the little guest book. Most people, if you meet someone, hey, how are you? How you doing? People begin to tell you about themselves, and someone will say, oh, what do you do? So you go through job, this, where you live, and all that stuff, and like, that's not who I am. Who I am is a guy that like, if I go through my day, like, I'm a guy that gets up late. I try to get up early every morning. On my best times, my wife and I get up early together and have coffee and read books together and talk. And I begin my way that way. she spends the summer down the Cape. She's a teacher, and we got a cottage down in Brewster. Another gift of, putting booze bucks somewhere else. And so we spend the summer pretty disconnected. I go down the weekends, and so we're getting back into that routine. She's a teacher. She's back to school, and so we just haven't got up in the morning. But the most important thing in my life is have connection with God, connection with where I am in recovery, connection to where I'm at in the day. I paused before I came in here tonight and invited God in. When I go home tonight to see my wife, I'll pause. I'll invite God in, and I'll ask for, connection. Help me connect to my family. They don't know I'm doing this. They may not even notice the results of doing it, but I do.
Right.
I
You're being mindful of what you're entering into.
Where am I right now?
And not thinking of yourself.
Yeah. Because really what I want to do when I go home after work is I want to lock myself in a room and do nothing and not see anybody.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I think I want. But really what's going to be fulfilling is to actually have connection.
Yes.
And
it's easy to fall into that trap of not wanting to go out, not wanting to do anything, just not dealing with anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's also times where I do nothing and I'm fine with it. And I have to find the balance between that, because there's a message in my head that's saying, you should be out doing this, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. It's like,
I'm fine with it too.
We were joking about
really
the hammock.
nice.
I got on the Cape and I set up that hammock and I spent hours on it.
Yeah.
And I'm exactly
sounds
where
great.
I'm supposed to be.
Right. Exactly.
Boy, that sounds nice.
I've lived a pretty abundant life. I've run the Boston Marathon a couple of times.
Really?
I got to bring my daughter to the Eiffel Tower. I've swam with the stingrays. I've done all those, prayed in the Sistine Chapel. Like, I've done all those things.
Sounds pretty cool.
That you think, are important in life as far as like traveling but still at the end of the day, it's like if I can't be the guy that prays before he goes in the house, all that stuff, it's just fucking maple syrup on the horse shit. and really,
Jack
like,
the Marine.
I remember going to the Sistine Chapel, and I had this idea of I'm going to create this spiritual moment. I'm going to say that 11-step prayer, and I'm going to say that prayer to St. Francis, and we go down into the tomb, and there's no one there. It's me, the person I was with, and a monk, and here I am. I'm kneeling. There's candles burning around his tomb, and it's this picturesque, idea of what is a spiritual moment, and I could not have felt emptier inside. And you can't conjure spirituality. You can live in it, you can participate in it, but you can't conjure this. And I think that's where a lot of people I see struggle is like, well, I'm praying, I'm doing this. Well, it's like, fucking God's not Advil. You know what I mean? My relationship with prayer and meditation isn't about, taking something that's going to make me feel better rather than being better with what is being given to me. So I'm given this situation, how can I be my best in it? Not how can I feel good through it? How can I be my best in it? And how can I bear witness to someone else that you can do this and you can stay sober through it and be there for somebody and take the shit when it comes,
Right. It's like you can't be. I'm gonna go get spiritual right now.
Yeah,
no,
I'm gonna go get spiritual. No,
it fucking happens.
You're gonna go get miserable. Is what you're gonna do.
Yeah, trying to force it.
But paying attention to the noise in the head, and I think that's another thing people have, struggles with spirituality, prayer, meditation. And it's this idea that meditation is solely about quieting the noise. And for me, I have to honor the noise.
Yeah.
Pay attention. I'm not afraid of it.
Right.
I was driving yesterday in work, and I saw this guy, probably in his 60s, struggling with a board, trying to cut it. He had big chop saw set up and these jigs, and I drove by, and my first thought was like, oh, I should help him. And I was like, I'm in a rush to go somewhere. And I probably got about 30 yards, stopped my truck, backed up, went back. Hey, buddy, you need a hand? He's like, boy, do I ever. And
wow.
I talked with him. I happened to be in my work truck, and he's like, oh, you guys are, right around the corner. So, it was nice that he got to see that, but it was nice that I honored that little thing. And it's the little things. When I throw the napkin and it doesn't go in the barrel, and I walk by.
I know.
You know, oh, someone else will get that. No, like I have to honor that and honor the noise and honor what's given to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the journey to that doesn't start in the beginning of sobriety. Like I had to get sober, bang my head against the wall.
Yes.
You know, make mistakes, and to live through this in order to say, this is who I am today. And I'm still at no destination. Sometimes I think I'm more spiritually blind than I've ever been because I'm more aware of the need for it.
Right.
It's counterintuitive when you think about the fact that the little actions that no one else is really going to know about but you, and how much effect it has on you. You know what I mean?
It does, man. And I've been seeing it and feeling it a lot lately.
Gives you self-respect.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of doing something good. You're like, you know, oh, I'm the type of person who does this. Even if you don't say it to yourself, that's the type of way you think of yourself. And over years and over time of doing the same type of good things, the next right action, this is the type of identity you develop for yourself. And it feels great.
That's exactly
really
what I
does.
drove away saying yesterday. As I drove away, I said, this is who I am.
There you go.
This is who I want to be.
Beautiful.
This is who I am. This is who I go home, bring home. We're probably out of time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I got one quick story. I just want to. We all talk about like where we've been, what happened, and what's like now. For me, it's so important what it's like now. It's like, what is the result of all the stuff that I've seen in my life? And like being a father is probably the most important thing to me. And I have a daughter, and I cherish her, and I'm her primary male relationship. I'm her first introduction to what it's like to have a man in her life, and I'm very aware of that. And you know, one of the things I've always tried to do was when I put her to bed at night, I sing "You Are My Sunshine," and still to this day, if I put her to bed at night, that's what I sing to her. And I try to talk to her, and I try to build inroads for her to have a conversation with her primary male relationship, her dad, in her bedroom, in the place that she needs to feel safe and protected, for the rest of her life. And so when she was really young, I would tell her stories before we went to bed, and I would all of a sudden I started to mix up the stories to see if she would catch them. Like she knew how like they were supposed to go, and she said, "That's not what happens in that story." And then I would tell her stories, like make it up about something that we did that day. Like one day, this dad and his daughter went to pick apples, and they picked the apples, and a monkey was in the tree. And she'd say, "Wait a minute, we went to pick apples. There was no monkey in the tree." And so I would say to her, "Okay, you tell me the story." And then she would tell me the story. And what I was doing was giving her a voice. Instead of being, you're supposed to listen to me, let me listen to you. And allow her to tell me her stories. And when she was 6 years old, she had a birthday party that kind of went wrong. We were supposed to be in the park. It was raining, and we had made this piñata. I made this Minions piñata with her out of paper mache, and we did it. So she was so bummed out, and she was in bed that night. And she's 6 years old, and she said to me, "Dad, can we have one of those talks where we talk about our feelings?" At 6 years old, I had no ability to even conceive that I had a feeling.
Very cool.
But this is the result of this work, is that, I have a daughter that is free to talk about things with me.
Yeah, much less to your dad.
Yeah, to your dad, And we have a relationship. And again, it's not perfect. I'm not father of the year.
Right.
I don't do everything perfect.
Sounds like you're doing pretty good.
But my daughter, she came home with a permission slip last night. She's 11, she's in 5th grade. She goes, "Can you sign this? I want to run for student council." Like it was nothing. Like, I would never put myself in a position where I would run for student council.
I
know. Idea,
So you said, "No, go to your room."
I said, "What are you, stupid?" Actually, she brought it to my wife. We were sitting on the couch, and Holly signed it. And but I just took that in, that like, this is where she's at. And she's going to be a kid and go through struggles, and I don't want to rob her of any of them.
Right.
But I want her to have a voice through them, because I never felt like I had a voice. Not because my parents didn't allow me to. It just whatever it was, I felt that way. And she's going to grow up feeling her things and have her struggles and have her problems. But I'm not going to sit back. hope and say, I wish I've done more. I haven't up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and I don't want to rob her from that pain.
Yes. Out of any successful person, you ask them what if they could get anything back, it would be more time with their family.
Yeah.
Any successful person that has a family.
Yeah.
That's what they missed out.
I think there was a
Yeah.
letter Steve Jobs wrote before he died. And he was basically saying, I've had access to everything I could ever want.
Mm-hmm.
Someone to open every door for me, my car, this and that. You know, it's worth nothing now. I'm dying. And it's the things you value. You know, and I try to ask myself consistently, like, what would a man who trusts and relies upon God do in this situation right now?
Mm-hmm.
If I can pause and do that, invite God in, what would a man who trusts and relies upon God do? And try to envision that and gain strength from that and try to take that direction. I'm usually okay. I have no control over outcomes, but I'm usually okay.
Right.
Beautiful.
And on that note,
Fantastic, man. That was great.
all right. Thanks, Tommy, for coming in.
Thanks
A
for
lot of
having me
great,
anytime.
a lot of great jewels there.
Yes.
I
Knowledge.
give a great 2-hour talk on humility, by the way.
Right. All right. LOLTerms.com.
Please subscribe.
Like, subscribe, share.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
yes.
We really
And-
appreciate you.
Yes. And anyone out there, if you want to come on, you want to talk about something, hit us up. You know.
We need you.
LOLTerms.com. Peace.
Peace. See ya, YouTube.